So it's a pleasure today to speak to Simon O'Grady, who is former international school principal and now CEO of High Performance Learning. So hello, Simon.
Helen, delighted to be joining you from Oxford. And as we turn the page on 2020, charged with the required optimism for the new year ahead of us.
I expect nothing less from you, Simon. Absolutely right, absolutely right. But tell us, can you just say, how did you get to Oxford? Because I will say for most of your career, I've known you as an international school principal. So how did you get from there to where you are now?
Well, 30 years in education, 15 as a head teacher, 5 schools, 4 continents, 3 headships in Cairo, Kuala Lumpur and Mexico City. Schools in different contexts and cultures, but united by an ambition to be world-class and world-class schools. Now, over the years, my faith in fixed ability profiling had been undermined and questioned by experience. And equally, research from Aird, Dweck, Hattie was questioning established belief and practice. High performance learning provided a research-backed framework with a focus on those cognitive characteristics that support student success. And having successfully accredited my school in Mexico City, I was asked by Professor Deborah to lead the organization. So not quite Victor Khayyam, but similar. And I suppose in a circuitous way, my journey to high performance learning started in Egypt, just after its first revolution 10 years ago. I was principal of the British International School Cairo then, and we'd faced significant challenge in leading the school through a violent period where personal safety and school survival were in question. And by 2015, ISI landed in Cairo to inspect the school. Now that inspection outcome was a glorious tribute to our staff, who had remained loyal and stayed in Egypt, despite the dangers, to protect the school and see it prosper. ISI judged the school to be excellent in all areas. Now, presented by that achievement, we faced a fork in the road, and the end of a hard track, but the beginning of a new journey. And we had the ambition and we had the evidence to know that high performance for most learners was an attainable outcome. So with that kernel of progressive idea, HPL gave us the unique framework to achieve it.
I mean, that was a tough challenge. I know that was a tough challenge being in Egypt at that time. I mean, all that the disruption that there was, I mean, great outcomes there. I mean, we're facing at the moment a world of disruption with COVID. I mean, what a time to come from being principal of a school to CEO of an organization which works with lots of schools. I mean, how are you finding that, you personally? How are you finding that shift?
Well, moving from being a school principal to a CEO of an education company, it's a progression with many parallels and some polarities. From major strategic decisions, managing overall operations and company resources, to acting as the main point of communication between the board and its stakeholders. And such parallels involve transferable skills developed in school leadership contexts. But I think 3 differences are worth noting. Greater commerciality in decision making, flexible thinking to meet unique client needs, and a realization that one's impact can cut across sectors.
Yes.
You see, HPL has impacted on thousands of students in scores of schools, and the impact data shows statistically significant uplift in optimism and outcomes.
And that's across all schools in all sectors then, is that?
All schools, all sectors, but obviously the well of my experience as a head teacher, HPL gave a new horizon with a powerful effect on learning and deliberate practice. So normal planning horizons, however, with COVID have been displaced. And
I mean, how has it affected you? I mean, how is that? How has COVID affected what schools can do as far as their high performance learning journey is concerned?
Well, I think COVID has had a two-stage effect on school leaders. You know, from a sudden singular focus on operations, and that is something we've seen across all sectors and at different stages, all countries. And that dark tunnel that schools have, you know, had to be facing for the last few months, often, you know, requires a huge focus upon operational decisions and just getting through. But there is light at the end of that tunnel. And indeed, you know, heads are seeing that there is an emerging ambition to reimagine education post-COVID. So from a focus on business continuity to a strategic perspective on learning, and the virus has forced us to appreciate what we really value, both personally and professionally. And I suppose giving students control, rooted in an appreciation of their learning, has never been more important. And the values and attitudes and attributes that underpin, never more vital. So across the world, and we work with international schools, we work with independent schools, we work with maintained schools. Across the world, schools have moved quickly to adapt to alien conditions. And it's a great tribute to school leaders where education has prevailed. And one great benefit is that a paradigm shift in terms of training, with an emergent, flexible practice, embracing professional learning online. And paradoxically, the more we master online tools, the more we yearn for on-site instruction.
Yes.
And prevailing mental health matters come from reduced social contact with the caring context of learning. So these are the key learning points. Whereas,
I mean, you talked about student agency back there, also, you know, the involvement of students and engagement of students in this. I mean, to what extent do you think that is, or what does the evidence show, that that's really important, that they take charge of their own learning moving forward? I mean, I can say instinctively, it seems to me that yes, you know, that's the case. But one of the counter arguments to that is that, well, how do they know what to take control of? And I mean, what's your perspective on that?
Well, we see emerging evidence from that students in HPL schools have coped better. And that's in part to do with HPL, which gives students an understanding of learning and the supporting strategies. And it's in part to do with the kind of schools we work with and the support structures that they already have in place. But students with high levels of self-motivation, persistence, and independence have thrived, while most have struggled. And privatized learning has exposed issues of anxiety, isolation, and depression that need to be addressed. We work with schools across the world, maintained an independent primary, secondary, national and international, and we've therefore seen the effects of COVID on schools in different sectors. As an agile company, we've been quick to adapt operations, and we've got different ways of working, from direct delivery through our associates to shared delivery, where we work with in-school trainers. So, and our different delivery models from on-site to online, using our bespoke programs and platforms. About 90% of our work continues, and continues with plans adjusted, but progress unaffected. And our virtual platforms have ensured business continuity for schools, whether on site or online. But we're short term, we're seeing both economic and educational effects. And economically, across different countries, there's been a shift in resources to health and economic relief at the expense of resources for education.
Although education surely is at the heart of economic relief, fundamentally, isn't it?
Well, you're absolutely right. And the recent IFS report notes 9% fall in spending per pupil, 9% in 1920 compared with 10 years ago. And that's the largest cut in 40 years. Economically, we're also seeing post-Brexit a reduction in student mobility, but post-COVID as well, in terms of international schools, specifically tertiary, with effects long run. Educationally, the need for sustained investment in professional learning that reflects what we now know about the cognitive causes of student success, and educational view from parents of the value of great teachers, as on-site instruction enhances academic progress and embraces child well-being.
Right, so if I were to ask you then to think about how you would sum up the state of education more generally across the world, what would you say then? What would you say?
Well, we work with some of the best schools in the UK and some of the best international schools. We work with some of the best maintained and independent schools, and many are the best in their sector. And they're led by outstanding school leaders, ambitious, forward-thinking heads, shaping the future of education. The state of education now is a mix of present realities and near future possibilities.
How near are those future possibilities? How close are we to getting everybody to that state of the best schools, like the best schools that you work with? How close are we to that?
Helen, despite the ongoing turgid nature of COVID, we have a superb opportunity, and COVID has concentrated the mind in terms of what societies value and what individuals within those societies are valuing. And indeed, it's the purpose for educational leaders to shape the future of education at this important juncture. I can see that, in terms of the likely changes that are ahead of us, that there are, key areas of change in terms of structure, in terms of ideas, and in terms of regulation. In terms of structure, the near present possibilities, I think there's going to be further consolidation in the independent sector and internationally. And we're seeing a lot of strategic partnerships between prep and senior schools, and more group consolidation on the international stage. In the UK, the teaching schools alliances have a great potential to spur high quality professional development, and not just with regard to school-led ITT, but school-wide networks where supporting excellent practice and evidence-based professional and leadership development. The School Improvement Commission report, Improving Schools, significant work that governing bodies in the UK must read and embrace. And the evidence from the Educational Policy Institute is also suggesting that high quality professional learning has a greater effect on pupil attainment than many other school-based interventions, including performance-related pay and lengthening the school day. So the urgent need now is to enhance the quality of life in all areas of education, but particularly the most marginalized and depressed areas of our country, which needs a change in policy and culture.
I find it interesting that you're talking there about many initiatives in the UK, because UK education, British education, has got a worldwide reputation, doesn't it? I mean, you know that from the work that you've done abroad. I know that as well. And would you say that that reputation is warranted? That excellent reputation is warranted?
Well, I think the best of British education is world class in school and university sectors, and on different continents, shaped by different cultures. We see its worldwide appeal. Its global appeal has statistical impact on the UK. For example, at the schools level, within the UK, international pupils in independent schools, they support about 1.8 billion of GDP. And you know, that generates half £500 million in tax revenues. And beyond Britain, there are more than 9,000 English medium international schools, educating around 6 million pupils. And of that number, nearly 4,000 are British origin schools. Mm-hmm. International parents, they like brand GB. It has reputation, it has quality, it builds lifelong social networks, and it enables access to the best universities globally. Parents like schools that are British in character, but international in outlook. And these schools recognize that there is a global market and that there is a multilingual workplace. And they invest in that through a broad, innovative curriculum. I've seen this in my own schools. In Mexico, we introduced Mandarin, first in the country to do so. Parents loved it. Whereas in Malaysia, a brand new school, extracurricular excellence gave that school that competitive edge. And it's just what British education is all about. The emphasis on the whole child, supported by a rich variety of extracurricular activity, it makes UK education distinctly valued. With universities, about 500,000 students per annum come to the UK for university study. And that's 70% from non-EU countries. And that value is also shared within. Participation rates in UK universities, it's participation rates of the UK 17 to 30-year-olds, they're increasing. And it's, you know, compared with when I was at university, it was under 10%, now over 50%. And UKHE is regarded as among the best in the world. It's based upon its reputation for research, and our top universities embrace internationalism and then welcome international students. So, you know, overall, the state of our appeal and its worldwide reputation is warranted.
So if you could wave a magic wand and look at and transport yourself 5 years into the future, or if you had a crystal ball and you could look at 5 years into the future, what would you think you would see and find? Would we have been on an upward trajectory so that we've got a greater excellence? Will there have been damage from the restrictions that there have been for professional development? And what do you think we're going to find? I mean, I must say, it's hard sometimes in schools to think beyond the day after tomorrow, but if you were able to look into the future and see, what would you think? What do you think you will find in 5 years' time?
I think the shapes of the future in education are already forming, and they're being framed by the fourth industrial revolution that we're contributors to, and that means, you know, several things. It means embracing research from the learning sciences with best practice in teaching and learning based on it. It means focusing on meta and social human intelligences and using performance coaching with students in learning. It inevitably means more digital transformation with a focus on the ethical use of AI, for example. already apparent in schools and already apparent in key sectors like language learning. It means intelligent infrastructures which collect and use data to make decisions about learning and what's best for learners. Those shapes are already forming, and we're seeing consolidation in the independent sector in the UK and internationally. More partnerships between prep and senior schools, more group consolidation on the international stage. I think within the next 5 years, overseas growth will accelerate, and traditional markets like China and the Emirates will still be there. 40 new schools this year, but new markets will emerge. Southeast Asia, for example, countries like Vietnam and the Americas. But as the shape of education changes, key constants remain, and the increasing importance of collaboration in learning, more interdisciplinary learning, and a planned parity for well-being, positive mental health will predominate the agenda. We see the future now in the schools that we work with. And through their consistency and excellence in teaching and learning, they deliberately and systematically develop students those cognitive competencies that lead to success. And these schools already stand out. They have a positive culture with good well-being indicators in place. Their students are confident, they're engaged, and they enjoy school. The future is happening now in such schools. They're popular with parents, with strong engagement that's courted and encouraged, and strong staff satisfaction, teacher attention. And the last thing, of course, and it is the last thing because it's the end product of all these things, enhanced student outcomes year on year. So Helen, I think the future is now. Now, to get there, however, we need to encourage the nascent ambition of our school leaders, supported by strategically focused governance, who are invested in professional practice that achieves high student performance.
Oh, totally agree. Well, you're inspiring me, and it's this vision of having a future of outstanding education for all. Well, I'm really glad to be on the journey with you, Simon, fellow educators, and with all our other fellow educators all over the world. So thank you so much. Thank you for sharing all that. Good luck over the next term and beyond. Look forward to hearing more, and we'll catch up again soon, I have no doubt. So thank you very much.
Will do. Happy New Year.